Joining me right now is former Veterans Affairs Secretary and former Assistant Defense Secretary Robert Wilkie. He is the Heritage Foundation Visiting Fellow. Robert, it's great to see you, Secretary. Thanks for being here. So what do you think? Is Vladimir Putin shaking in his boots this morning?
No. And I think I'll go back to what the Wall Street Journal said the day before yesterday. The Russians don't take Mr. Biden seriously. Think about it from Putin's perspective. Biden's first action was to destroy American energy independence and then ask the Russians to put more oil on the market to help America keep oil prices down. So that's how you start that conversation. The other thing that we are seeing is that Biden is not playing on the dimensional chess level that Putin is. Putin's making advances in the Middle East. He just signed a defense cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia. The Arab-Israeli rapprochement that was revolutionary under Trump is now fading because the Russians are filling in the gap that the Biden administration has left. The other thing is we've done nothing to help our Eastern European allies. Putin has weaponized migrants coming out of the Middle East to destabilize Poland, Bulgaria, and Romania. If Biden was serious, he would open the spigots up for defense products that could go to Ukraine to help them take out Putin tanks and Putin planes. That's exactly what President Trump did, and Putin was quiet for 4 years. The other thing that he could have done was to send troops into the Eastern European nations to help them with the border crisis that Putin is fomenting. But without those concrete actions and Biden's past actions, most of these words are probably empty.
Well, empty and beyond, because it's not just the things that you just mentioned, but how about not paving the way for massive profitability for Russia and then begging OPEC to put oil on the market so that we can be independent, which we were under the Trump administration. I mean, Jake Sullivan yesterday actually suggested that the Nord Stream 2 pipeline could be used as a tool against Russia. Well, why is the Nord Stream pipeline in operations in the first place? Here's Jake Sullivan. Watch this. This was yesterday.
Gas is not currently flowing through the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which means that it's not operating. It is a leverage for the West, because if Vladimir Putin wants to see gas flow through that pipeline, he may not want to take the risk of invading Ukraine.
But, Secretary, isn't it true that the U.S. has already given the blessing so that it could operate and give natural gas to Europe?
That's right. And it's almost like Biden has said we're going to give Russian unions construction jobs. But once that pipeline is ready, do you think that Western European leaders, particularly the new socialist leader of Germany, is going to want to cut off natural gas in the middle of a European winter? I mean, we've already set the stage for failure in Western Europe, and that's all because of this ideologically blinded administration.
Yeah, and it's not just toward Russia. I mean, what about China? This no-teeth policy on China is also incredible. The House approved the National Defense Authorization Act this week. It provides $300 million for Ukraine, a statement of support for Taiwan, and a pay bump for troops and more Navy ships. But look, what's interesting about this bill is what's not in it. You know, no sanctions over the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, Secretary. And also, you know as well as I do, Bernie Sanders' budget does not include a dime extra in defense spending, even as our adversaries are rising. What are we doing, given the fact that China is is outgunning us when it comes to the Navy and the money that they're investing in their military?
Well, I think the message was sent with the Olympic decision that for some reason the Biden administration thought that by withholding the vice president and Mrs. Biden from taking a seat next to Xi Jinping, the hard men in Beijing would quake. Biden's defense budget is the lowest defense budget since the end of World War II. It is not realistic. You just mentioned it. Our ships are being run ragged. We don't have enough hulls in the water. We've been here before with Jimmy Carter, and Ronald Reagan seized the moment and reversed the trend. This time we have a more formidable opponent than the sclerotic Soviet Union because, as you know better than anyone, the Chinese have an economic component to their grand strategy that the Soviet Union never had. But We continue to signal weakness. It's interesting you mentioned Jake Sullivan. Jake Sullivan was one of the architects of the disaster in Ukraine in 2014 and was one of the proponents. Instead of sending Ukrainians missiles and weapons to fight Russians, he sent them meals ready to eat and blankets. That's who's in charge. And one last thing. The mainstream media in the United States has forgotten Afghanistan. The Russians, the Chinese, and the Iranians have not. They've seen a president not only quit the fight after 20 years, but abandon hundreds of Americans to the mercies of the Taliban. That is not lost on the hard people who make the decisions in that axis of evil, if I could use that term, in Beijing, Moscow, and Tehran.
That's exactly right. You make so many important points. And by the way, one other thing when talking about Jake Sullivan, he was the guy who was peddling a Russia collusion hoax that was a lie from his boss, Hillary Clinton. So he's over there telling everybody her opponent colluded with Russia, Russia. Meanwhile, completely misses what's a serious adversary in China. The CCP military, according to a report, is on a spending surge, Secretary. They are now 50% larger spending than India, Japan, Taiwan, Southeast Asia combined. They're spending on their military. Okay, they've got their priorities straight. They want to overtake the United States as the #1 superpower, and they're putting their money behind it. What is the problem with Joe Biden understanding who China really is and the adversary that is the CCP? Why doesn't he get it?
Yeah, well, I think there's a more fundamental question. You have people who don't believe in the unique position that the United States hold. You have people in this administration, particularly in the White House, who believe that the sources for all of the world's problems are the United States. And if you start from that position, you show your hand, you show your weak hand. One thing I wanted to add, because Israel has been such an important part of the American psyche since it proclaimed independence in 1948, Prime Minister Bennett just spent a weekend with Vladimir Putin cutting a deal so that the Russians will not fire on Israeli planes who are going after terrorist groups in Syria. Why is that important? Because Biden and his administration have coddled up to the Iranians. They are bound and determined to make a deal with the Ayatollah. And even our Israeli friends are retreating from association with this administration to the point where they are now talking on a daily basis with the Russians. The same with the Saudis and our former Arab allies.
Just extraordinary. And it brings me back to the apology tour that President Obama went on across the world, blaming the United States for everything. And yet all of those people who worked with Obama are now at the White House. Susan Rice, Jake Sullivan, the list is long. Secretary, it's great to see you to discuss the realities that we face. Thank you, sir. Secretary
Thank you,
Robert
Maria.
Wilkie.